What's up, everyone? Welcome in to the Denver Sports Podcast. Christian Saez here, joined by the one and only Henry Chisholm. And today we're talking decision makers, ownership, front office. We've got a couple teams, most of our teams here in Colorado, that seem to do things the right way. We've got a couple, one specifically, that doesn't do things the right way or hasn't done things the right way. But they're trying to figure out. They're trying to start to get things going. In light of the Rockies trying to become a competent baseball organization again, changing their front office, I figured it was a good opportunity for us to kind of look at some of the other organizations here in Colorado that seemingly do things the right way. The ownership group, some of the history of those organizations, and how the front office is approaching those teams today. So I figured I'd bring in the DNVR sports nerd, the guru of all things Colorado sports. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Glad to have you back.
Lexi, so we actually didn't get invited to any Halloween parties this year.
Okay.
Which is kind of like,
sad.
Yeah, I know. For the first time since I was like, I don't know, like 9?
Yeah.
Maybe even before. But Lexi last night was like, well, should we just like watch a scary movie Friday night for Halloween? I was like, well, gotta see what's up with the Nuggets and Avs. Yeah. And they both play.
Yeah,
so unfortunately, there will be no Halloween this year.
No Halloween for you guys
because
this year.
Sports are what it's all about.
Sports over everything, as we
Yes.
like to say.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's, to be fair, those are very worth your time. If it was a Rockies situation over the summer, 4th of July, it's like, all right, the Rockies are playing. I mean, we're both sickos. We'll watch the Rockies games. But that's a different pull than the Nuggets and the Avs, where you're like, these are two championship teams. I want to see two of the best players of all time, and McKinnon for the Avs and Jokic for the Nuggets. Like, it makes that decision a little bit easier.
Although the Rockies would be kind of in the theme of Halloween. Be nice and spooky.
It's spooky season.
Go out there, see them give up 9 runs to the Pirates. Yeah.
And then come back and win.
Yep.
We got a good show today. I want to start because now that you are with me on this show, we got to start by talking about the Broncos, because I think if you look at which ownership group, we're talking about the ownership group first. If you look at each different organization's ownership group, I think from at least the fans' perspective, I think the Broncos ownership has made a bigger impact, at least from my perspective, than in the recent years than we've seen from almost any other ownership group for the Avs, the Nuggets, although those are the same, and then certainly the Rockies. So I want to start with the Broncos. And if you look back at the history, the Broncos ownership, it's not just the Penners that have made a huge impact on the Broncos. Obviously, we all know about the Bolins. But I want to kind of ask your opinion. What do you think, or who, I should say, do you think the most influential owner in Broncos history has been, and what made them the most influential owner for the Broncos?
So it's still Pat Bolin, and for the Penners to be able to surpass him, there's no way to do it quickly. They're doing a lot of great things, the new stadium, and the team is trending in the right direction. But I mean, Pat Bolin's a guy who ran the team for 30 years, and like actually ran it.
Yeah.
Not Stan Kroenke, he owns the Nuggets, but he doesn't run the Nuggets. He's not there every day. Pat Bolin was in there every day making all the decisions. And that just cannot be surpassed in less than a decade and a half. And even in a decade and a half, you'd have to be winning Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And then you could say like, okay, they've probably done it. Pat Bolin is the greatest owner in the history of Denver sports even.
Yeah.
Just the things that he did, taking the Broncos from, a football team to the Denver Broncos that we know now. Took over in 1984, so the second year of the John Elway era, which certainly helps. But it takes a lot to be able to push a team in the right direction. And it's something that I never really realized. You grow up knowing Pat Bolin's owner of the Broncos. Everybody loves him. He does a great job. He pushes them towards winning. But you see what the Broncos were when I first started covering them without an owner. And in that really 10 years where nobody was really controlling the team, and it was ran by the trust. You think it's fine because you just need a football team. Like, you still have the finances you need. You still have whatever. It's up to the front office to just go do their thing. But the difference when you see an ownership group like the Penners come in is just massive, because it gives the entire organization direction. You know, it's easy to say we want to be the best organization in football, but it doesn't actually mean anything unless you have an ownership group who's coming in saying, okay, we're going to be out of the stadium soon. Guess what? We're putting $150 million in investments into it just this year, and we're going to do it again next year. We're going to do it again the year after. We're going to build a brand new state-of-the-art practice facility. It's going to be the best facility in all of the NFL. We're going to build a new stadium that's going to be the best stadium in the world. Like, when you're actually out there doing all of those things, that's when it's a lot easier as a player to say, like, oh, yes, we are the Denver Broncos. We are the best. And, you know, with Pat Bowlen, that's what he did for forever.
Yeah. And I think it leads into kind of my next question, because you talk about the influence that, you know, the Bolins had, the Penners obviously have, and the investments that they're making. We all know about the investments that the Penners have made, you know, whether it be future investments or even just, hell, you know, changing the field, you know, investing in a brand new field. Just
$400,000 right here. We got one more game, $400,000.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff is crazy. And obviously that comes with an absurd amount of money. The Penners are by far the richest ownership group in the NFL. But it kind of leads into my next question of, do you have to be a great football mind or a great sports mind in general to be a good owner? Or is there a separation between those two? Because obviously it helps, but from what you're describing, it sounds like there's a lot more than just sports decisions that are made when it comes to being a good owner.
Right. That's a good question. I think you'd have to look at all of the best owners.
Yeah.
You know, and in Denver, you know, we go back to Pat Bowlen, and he was somebody who didn't have all that money, but what he knew was how to build a football team, where to invest, and was a little bit more involved in kind of the day-to-day. Like, he wasn't Jerry Jones or anything, but was out there pushing things. He was somebody who did know how to be a football owner, not just a person with a bag of money who can invest. The Penners right now are still in that process, and they're doing a really good job. But as they have said, you know, especially that first year, you're learning how the game works, how the league works, how all the different rules work. And it isn't so much hands-on like, hey, we need to go spend this money to go get a star player right now, as much as it's like, hey, we're going to let you guys do all this stuff. Tell us what you're going to do. Talk to us about it. We want to approve it, but tell us your reasoning, explain it to us, and figure it out. So they're still on that path, because it's a tough thing to learn. I'd be curious though, like, do you have to be knowledgeable about the sport? And you look through who are the best organizations in football. Like the Patriots for a long time were with Robert Kraft, a guy who doesn't seem to be. Again, with Jerry Jones out there, it's tough to put the scale of like how involved an owner is, but he is involved. He does know his stuff. He isn't meddling too much.
Well, I'd look at it the opposite direction too. Some of the worst owners, let's just say in sports.
Right.
Okay. Since it's the Denver Sports Podcast.
Yep, here we are.
Dick Monfort, right?
Yep.
It's pretty well known that he had his hands in probably way too many baskets from a player perspective, from a, you know, decision-making perspective. Ownership, while yes, they're going to be involved in the big decision-making, you know, they're the ones that signed the checks and everything like that. There is a good understanding that the Monforts had too much of a say in the baseball side of things. And they're not baseball people. They're not baseball decision makers. They didn't go to Harvard studying data and analytics for sports management and all that kind of stuff. Like, right. So I think that when you look at the bad side of things, like that's one of the faults of bad ownership. So yes, I do think it helps to be obviously a good sports mind when it comes to building a front office. But I think the best owners are the ones who can have the awareness to hire the good people. And that kind of brings us to our next point, which is the front office, that they can hire the people who are going to make the good decisions, who are the football minds, the George Paytons that are going to go out and build a roster that's going to be competitive. And so when you look at the front office, yes, the Penners have taken the Broncos out of the the woes of the Russell Wilson and the quarterback issues and all of that kind of stuff that kind of came in the limbo when the Bolin estate was kind of up in the air and you didn't know who was going to end up being the owner of the team. The Penners have created stability financially and physically, but at the same time, George Paton, at least on paper, has been the one who's created this roster. And for a while, I didn't even know if George Paton was still going to have his job with the whole Russell Wilson thing. So how impactful has it been that the Penners trusted George Paton to continue to guide this ship and gave him the length to be able to kind of figure that out?
Right. I mean, it's striking the balance because there are a lot of things that the Penners are not going to be involved in. Like they want to be sitting in the room on draft day, not because they want to have any input at all into what they do, but because they just want to see how it all works, see how the operation goes. You hear a lot now about the Colts owner with Jim Irsay dying, his daughter, who also is very involved on the headset during game days. She says she wants to know who knows what they're talking about when it comes to the coaches and the front office and the conversations that are had. If there's a mix-up between a signal, whose fault is that? And it's a little bit overbearing, and we'll see how it plays out. But there is a lot too. Like, I want to know how all of this works, especially in her first year as an owner. With George Paton, again, so much of football is just having the right people in the right places. And what the ownership is there for is providing direction, picking the standards, understanding, what if things don't go well? What is our bar for success for a general manager? You're not drafting well. How well do you need to draft to keep your job? How well do you need to do all these sorts of things? How well do you need to communicate with people? And it's oversight more than anything. I think a lot of it's really changing too. The more that I think about it, the more money really is a factor. Pat Bolin didn't have a lot of money. He was struggling to pay the team. They had to do a bunch of kind of financial gymnastics to make it all work. There was the deferred payments to John Elway late in his career because you just had to find a way to get everybody around.
But I almost think that's almost kind of, it can be more effective sometimes because like the Dodgers, for example, have unlimited paychecks, unlimited, bank account to just say we can buy our way out of any problem that we possibly have. And that serves them well. It's not like it's not working. But I think people can respect the value and the longevity of building from within and being able to kind of, like you said, play some gymnastics to get through it. Obviously, I'd love to be able to just snap my fingers and say, the Broncos have unlimited money, which they kind of do now, but, the Rockies have unlimited money, Nuggets, so on and so forth. But the reality is, especially in this market here in Denver, not all of the teams are going to be able to have that blank paycheck or blank check that they can just sign on.
And it used to be in the NFL that there were a lot of successful teams that didn't have a lot of money. You think back, like at this point, Jerry Jones is one of the poorest owners in the NFL. As crazy as that sounds, but they have to go through the things that they have to go through. You think back on the Raiders, so successful for so long, but as the finances have just ballooned, again, like they make a lot more money now, but a lot of that is in the value of their franchise, because the Raiders are now worth whatever, $4 billion when a decade ago they were worth $500 million. And that growth has been astronomical. It means you can take out loans and do those sorts of things. But in terms of cash, there are a lot of tough decisions they've had to make. The reason they got rid of Khalil Mack back in the day was because they didn't have the cash to put in escrow to keep him around, so they had no option to trade him. And that was kind of, I can't remember if that was the end of Al Davis being in charge, beginning of Mark Davis. But you see a lot of those teams kind of struggle financially at this point, to the point where you just need to have enough cash to operate at the level that you'd like to. The Bengals really struggle with that. They haven't found a way to, and they're just so cheap. They have the reputation for it. And again, in the 90s, you're able to kind of fight your way through it. In the current NFL, where every team owner, every new owner is billionaires, big time billionaires, it's just really hard. And the NFL's made the changes that they're allowing private equity firms to invest so that you can get that influx in cash. And that's something they never thought that they would do. But there's just so many owners that have the difference. And so the difference, one of the big differences, for example, for people who don't know, is the way NFL contracts are structured is, so you have your yearly salary, $1 million a year for 5 years. You also have a signing bonus. And that signing bonus, that's another $5 million. So that means right away you get to give the guy the $5 million up front, which he really likes. But salary cap wise, that $5 million is split evenly over the 5 years. So it's 2 million, 2 million, 2 million, 2 million. You can convert all those to signing bonus. Essentially, you can push the salary cap hits down the road by giving people cash up front.
Yeah.
And so the cash rich owners, and that's on top of all the other things that money can do, which are a little bit less abstract, I guess. And we know how money works. But
something like that.
I think right now that in the NFL, at least, cash is so much more important than it has ever been.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And you look at the difference between the NFL and Major League Baseball, for example, that doesn't have a salary cap. So Major League Baseball, it really comes down to how much cash does this owner have? When Cohen wants to go spend $800 million to sign Juan Soto, even if he's going to defer some of that money, you still have to have that cash available. You have to be able to prove to the banks that you have $800 million sitting in a bank account that one day you will end up paying out to this player. So yes, when the Dodgers say we're going to go defer, $500 million of this contract to 2060, that's fine. They still have to be able to prove that they have $500 million sitting in a bank account today. And that's where it becomes a challenge for owners like the Monforts who don't have that kind of cash. Yes, they have equity in the organization. The Rockies are worth $2 billion or whatever it is, or more maybe. But they don't have that cash just sitting in a bank account. So it's harder to kind of compete in those ways. You got to play, like you said, financial gymnastics a little bit in those kind of ways. So we got to pause for our first break. After the break, let's talk about the Nuggets, because the Nuggets have one of the most unique ownership situations and also front office situations. You've got pretty much dual GMs, and there's a reason for that. And I want to talk about if that can relate to other sports, if that can connect to possibly the Rockies. So let's talk about that here coming up in just a moment. All right, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends right now over at Shady Rays. Shady Rays is the best sunglasses on the market. I mean, you cannot go wrong with Shady Rays, because Shady Rays, not only are they great sunglasses, but Shady Rays is a great company. They will replace your sunglasses for free if you lose them or break them, anything like that. And the way I look at it with Shady Rays is, you live in Colorado. It's sunny like 700 days out of the year. You got to have more than just one pair of sunglasses. You got to have a couple. Maybe you have one in your car. Maybe you got one at home for when you go walk the dogs. Maybe you have one in your office. Shady Rays is a perfect just daily wear, everyday sunglasses that you can have. I've got 3 pairs, literally one in my car. I've got one in the office, and I got one in my backpack that just in case, I forget my sunglasses sometimes, because we know how bright it can be here in Colorado. You got to have sunglasses anywhere you go. You don't want to get stuck blinded by the sun. Shady Rays is great. They've got great styles, great colors, so many things that you can say positives about Shady Rays. So right now we've teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com, use code DNVR for 35% off your polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Also want to give some love to our friends over at Game Time, because if you are heading out to hockey games this season, maybe you're going to watch the Avs like I did last night, go score a touchdown into the 2-point conversion against the Devils. That was incredible. Well, you got to use the Game Time app. Game Time is the best place to go get your tickets for anything, but especially hockey tickets. And look, you don't want to miss out. This is another championship season for the Avs. They are Stanley Cup bound, at least playoff-wise. The expectations are as high as they've ever been. You've got a healthy McKinnon. You've got a healthy Makar. You've got Olofsson, 31-year-old dude who's just absolutely sniping this year, on pace to double his points. And you got to make sure you get out there to Ball Arena and watch some games. Use the Game Time app. They've got incredible deals, lowest ticket price guarantee. I'm actually using the Game Time app to go to a Nuggets game coming up later this week as well. So the Game Time app is perfect. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account. Use code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Use code DNVR for $20 off. Tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. All right. Before we get into the whole Nuggets ownership situation, their front office, there's a lot to break down into that. You can't talk about the Nuggets without talking about Jokic. And since we're kind of doing a little overlap between baseball and other sports right now, I gotta have this conversation with you real fast. We've been watching Shohei Ohtani playing in the postseason in the World Series. By far the greatest baseball player I've ever seen. I think probably that's ever stepped foot on the face of this earth. Yep. I mean, what he's doing is incredible. And I find myself talking about Shohei Ohtani a lot from a baseball perspective in the same way that I talk about Jokic. Jokic does things that we've never seen a basketball player do. The stat lines that he puts up every night, the player that he is otherworldly. So it kind of brings up the question, and it's a really hard question, but who is a greater player, Shohei Ohtani or Nikola Jokic? And that is as loaded of a question as it gets. I understand there's different contexts with the different sports, but how do you break that down?
I mean, it has to be Ohtani. I mean, he's the best baseball player ever. I mean, and at this point, it's tough to even argue that.
Yeah.
And that's before you even get into like the whole, like, well, it was a lot easier to, and imagine what Ohtani would do in the 1920s if like Babe Ruth did, you know?
Yeah.
Like if he played in that era, he'd be incredible. You don't even have to do that. Like you can just look at what he's doing now versus his era and what Babe Ruth did versus his era. And you're just like, yeah, it's Ohtani.
But I'll also throw out there, Jokic is not only just a great big, he's a great shooter, right? I mean, like he's doing more than just being the best at his specific position. And I think that's where I can put Jokic in that argument. And I also think the Denver media, or the NBA media, not the Denver media, the NBA media, I think sometimes, a lot of times, undervalues the level of greatness of a player Jokic is. Maybe one day we will have the debate of, is he the greatest basketball player of all time? Is he in the same conversation as the LeBron James, as the Michael Jordan? Especially playing in Denver where you don't have the same resources as the Lakers or whatever. But I think if you look at it just by the sheer sense of basketball, of what he's done to the sport of basketball, he's changed that position and he continues to progress that. I still think there's an argument to be made. Yes, I do think Shohei edges him out just a little bit, just given how unique of a difference it is to go from pitching to hitting and to be great at both of those spots. But Jokic has to still be in that conversation, at least. I think you can compare the two, at least.
You know, it's fun. When we were out in London, for example, probably like 6-7 people I was talking to from Europe, Rob Nikola Jokic, and to them, he's just the best player ever.
Yeah.
You know, it's only in America that we say like, well, Michael Jordan had all the rings,
LeBron
all that
James,
stuff.
Yeah.
Talking to people over there, like, he is the best that there has ever been, which is just like a different perspective than what we have here where, you know, NBA media and the way people think about sports is just very different in America than it is in a lot of other places. Yeah, in NBA in particular. First of all, NBA basketball fans are very NBA centric, whereas over there it's like, okay, cool, he won championships, which is great, and like nothing against him, but it's
you're
about
looking
who the
at
best
stats,
player
you're looking
is,
at-
not just like how many rings did he have? Like in here, it's a lot of that. So I thought that was interesting.
It's also superstar here. Like
right.
how much of a superstar is Jokic compared to
What do people say on Twitter?
LeBron James?
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
well, okay, you can't compare
Look
that.
at the impressions. Like, it's just very different. So
Okay.
I thought that was fun. But again, like with Ohtani, it's just as unique and different as Nikola has been. Ohtani is just like
He's more of a unicorn.
right, and you'll never see it again. You've never seen it before.
Yeah.
And he does have like, it's one thing to be great. It's another to have those accolades. Like he now has the best NLCS game that anybody has ever had.
Yeah.
You know, to pitch how he pitched, to hit how he hits. You know, here's the thing. So he got pulled in the 6th inning, right, in that game?
Yeah.
With runners on 1st and 2nd. So if a reliever comes in and lets those guys get home, it ruins that whole game, which is a fun, like, little alternate history, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
The point is he didn't give up any runs. He has he's 4 for 4 with the 2 bombs, 3 bombs, whatever it was.
Yeah, he had 3 home runs that game.
Like that is the best game anybody has ever played in the postseason.
Yeah.
And there's really no conversation about it.
It's as if you took like a professional baseball player and put them on a high school team, and like that's the performance that you got. But this is a professional baseball player playing against other professional baseball players.
Right.
I'll finish this debate with this, and it's kind of it's almost like it makes me shiver to even say this. If Jokic was on a team like the Lakers with the notoriety, the fame, the Hollywood stardom that comes with being on a team like the Lakers, do you think the national narrative changes on whether or not Jokic is the greatest player of all time?
Oh, totally. I mean,
Right?
it
has to.
Right. It's just different. And they might not come out and say like he is the best ever, but at the very least, the question would be around. You know, is he the best? And that's just, again, it's just why the NBA. I really like watching NBA basketball. I just don't like hearing people talk about the NBA because it sure does. I mean, it's when you have the ESPN studios that are literally like in the same complex as the Lakers arena. Like, of course, this is going to happen. They all walk over there. They're all friends with the same people. Like, they're probably told specifically, like, hype up the Lakers. It's good for the league. And it's why media just really, really sucks. Although Peacock has been good.
Peacock's been better. I'm loving NBA on NBC, dude.
Yeah.
Listening to Bob Costas and Mike Tirico with the whole laser show of the intro. Oh, dude, it's bringing me back, man.
Right. And we're only a week in, and in 2 months or 2 years, we could be saying like, okay, it's the same. It's just the hot takes. It's whatever.
Yeah.
But they're off to a good start, which is refreshing.
I like it. Well, speaking of off to a good start, the Nuggets are also off to a good start. And if you kind of dive into their ownership history, they've got a unique history. Actually, I think one of the most fascinating histories of any of our Colorado sports teams. Take a quick jog down memory lane. Back in 1967, the team was founded by as the Denver Larks by the ABA, American Basketball Association. James Trindle was the owner. He sells controlling interest to Bill Rigsby. Rigsby renames the team the Rockets, which I forgot that the Nuggets were at one point named the Rockets. 1972, team changes their name to the Nuggets
because of the Houston Rockets. Now that you're in the same league, you can't have two Rockets.
Yep, can't do that. Can't be that. Can't be Rockets squared. 1989, Bertram Lee and Peter Bino become the first African-American owners of a Major League Sports franchise, buying the team for $65 million, which is just insane. I wonder if they ever knew that a player like Nikola Jokic would be coming through their future organization.
Made $300 million so far.
Yeah, right. Oh, good stuff. 1995, ComSat basically buys the all-encompassing subsidiary. They turn into Ascent Entertainment Group. ComSat sells the Ascent Entertainment Group to AT&T in 1997, the year that we were born, correct? Yes, I was born. Yeah, both of us. Okay. And then in 2000, Stan Kroenke purchases the Nuggets and the Avs and the Pepsi Center all at the same time for a whopping $450 million. Stan eventually had to give over ownership to his wife because of the fact that he bought the Rams.
Yep.
So I actually didn't realize that. I know that he owns the Rams. I just didn't realize that he had to give over ownership to his wife, Ann Walton Kroenke, because of that. So a storied history for this Nuggets organization.
Yep.
But the real point that I want to look at with this is, Josh Kroenke kind of operates as the owner, really.
The governor.
The governor, exactly. Yes. He kind of serves the team's best interests. He's the day-to-day operator of everything. You think of him as the president of operations almost. But he, I think, has been a very progressive owner, let's just say, in this situation, in the sense that he's taken a very aggressive approach to how he's built this front office. And we were doing our Rockies show yesterday talking about their front office possibilities and stuff. And there was a question that came up of, could the Rockies kind of follow the Nuggets path and hire two people to kind of organize their front office, hire pretty much a strategy person and a GM person. And I thought it's interesting because the Nuggets kind of were groundbreaking when they hired Ben Tenzer and who was the other guy, John Wallace, to kind of co-lead their team. But when you look at the reasoning behind that, the Nuggets are in a situation that's very unique because you have the greatest basketball player possibly of all time, or at least in the world right now. And so you're not trying to rebuild an organization. You are literally tasked with, how do we build the best possible team around this one player? And that's our only job, is to build around Nikola Jokic. And they decided they needed two people to do it. And it's very unique in the world of sports.
It is. It's a strange situation. And the Kroenkes have figured out how to, I guess, almost like franchise sports ownership. It's almost like Chipotle starts in Boulder and then it builds out because we've got the one store that works. Now we can have another. Now we can have another. And that's kind of what the Kroenkes have done, is found a way to just have all these different franchises and run them in a way that turns a profit. Create a corporation, almost ALLCITY-like in some ways.
Sure.
We go DNVR, we can branch out there, we can branch out there, we can branch out there.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, the way that the Kroenkes run is more business-like and more focused on, they are going to turn a profit.
But they aren't going to be too risky. Too. It's not just like the Rockies who do the economics business. They create a good stadium that brings in fans and just make money. Who cares what the product looks like? This is we have to have a good product here, right?
Yep.
You have to build that product first.
But you'll never see them do things like throw the turf out for $400,000.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You'll never
got
see
you.
them
Yeah,
put those big investments into the arena. You'll never, I mean, they don't even have like a practice facility for the Avs. The Nuggets have maybe the NBA's worst practice facility, just like a gym. Like most Division I basketball programs have like multiple courts to be playing basketball in when they practice, but somehow the Nuggets they do cut a bunch of those corners, and it's just a different approach. It's obviously worked for them. They win a championship. You wonder though if you had just bought in totally, where could you be? But they're risk averse.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like the Warriors when they realize we have Steph Curry, look at this window in front of us. Sure, it's risky for us to invest hundreds of millions of dollars into this team or whatever else. But then you look at how that worked out for them with the multiple championships, with the Steph Curry jersey being like iconic. Like you have kids just running around. Steph Curry's one of the jerseys that they wear. Like you don't see that for the Nuggets, and especially like Steph things all around the world. They wind up building the new arena because all these bets pay off. And the Cronkies just aren't willing to take those like gambles, those big investments and say, this is going to work and it's going to level us up. And I think it's bitten them in the ass. I think when you look back at some of the moves they made to avoid paying the tax, again, the rules changing recently makes it tough to say what you should have done. But they could have made every single move they made last year. 2 years ago. And No, last year, and still also just had KCP.
Yeah.
When you look at that and say like, okay, what is that team that felt like it was one piece away, a team that took the Thunder to 7 games, you could have also just had one more starter return that year, and that could have been enough. But the tax, all that sort of stuff on top of it, there's just a different tier. There's one more level. And it's a business and not a risk-taking investment where we're going to gamble and it's going to pay off big in a few years.
And I think with the Cronkies, like they trust the people that are there to make those decisions. And so much so that if those people aren't doing that, if those people aren't seeing things on the same page, like, Calvin Booth and Michael Malone last year, they're willing to make those tough decisions. And, we've compared this with the Monforts a lot. The Monforts run the Rockies like a mom and pop coffee shop, right? Like we're not going to fire people. We care about our workers, and that's, admirable from a business standpoint, but that doesn't do this is professional sports. You can't do that. You gotta operate like the Cronkies. You got to say, hey, our coach and GM aren't on the same page. We're moving on. We got to win. We got the best player in the world on our team right now. We have to win, and we can't allow any of this nonsense to take place behind the scenes. So I want to talk a little bit about the aggression and kind of especially how Kroenke manages that front office, and we'll bleed that into the Avs as well. And I also want to answer Arvada Luke's comment in the chat as well. But we got to take our next break of the show. After the break, we get to some of those topics. Well, I want to give some love to our friends right now over at Toyota. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR, and I absolutely love my brand new Toyota. I bought although I say it's brand new, it feels brand new. It's 2024 RAV4. It is an absolute beauty. I have loved driving it. I drove a 2007 Highlander, 250,000 miles. Probably could have kept going after that, but it was time to make a change. And so I went with our friends at Toyota, and I have had no regrets. I've driven Toyotas my entire life, and there's a reason for that. I started out on a Camry, went to that Highlander, and now I'm with the RAV4. And my wife, Marissa, she actually does not drive a Toyota, and I think I've convinced her that her next car is going to be a Toyota, because I just don't have problems. Her car has been in the shop 2 or 3 times a year for like just random things, and I change my oil, I rotate my tires, do all the basic stuff. Haven't had any problems, knock on wood. But I mean, Toyota's just a reliable car. Yeah. It gets you to where you need to go. It's great. You feel good driving it. They have so many different choices. If you want to go the hybrid route, they've got hybrid options, all-wheel drive options like my RAV4 that I'm driving. They've got truck options. I mean, you just can't go wrong with Toyota. They have so many good things. I have so many good things to say about them. So if you're in the market to buy a new Toyota, head to your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson's Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson's Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR. Also want to give some love to our friends over at Dick's Sporting Goods because it's almost the holidays, which is kind of crazy. I mean, Thanksgiving is in a month. Christmas is going to be right around the corner from that. And maybe you want to get a head start on some of your early holiday shopping. Well, Dick's Sporting Goods, they have the best apparel, sports apparel, whether you're getting new golf balls, maybe you're getting the new pair of running shoes, or maybe, you want to go get some DNVR swag. There is some good DNVR swag out at the Dick's Sporting Goods. Have you been out there to see for yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been there for a while.
It's been there for a while, but have you I've wandered into a Dick's Sporting Goods before, probably about a year ago. And yeah, it was like seeing your name on a billboard or something. You're like, oh, that's DNVR stuff. Yep. That's pretty sick. So Dick's Sporting Goods, you can't go wrong. They have great stuff, whether it's soccer, football, basketball, golf. I actually went and picked up a new basketball the other day from there as well. So whether it's apparel, sports gear, anything, get your gear fast at Dick's Sporting Goods. They also have best price guaranteed as well. So get your gear fast with free curbside pickup at your nearest store or easy shipping from Dicks.com, because every season starts at Dick's. Back on the Denver Sports Podcast, I want to answer Luke in the Toyota chat real quick. He says, how do the Monforts not try to get into a bidding war going between the Penners and the Cronkies if they're truly about that dough? It's a good question. And obviously you get that question a lot. We all, as Colorado sports fans, would love for the Monforts to sell the team. The reality is it's just unlikely to happen, because I think there's a specific reason why the Monforts, despite all the hate that they get, all the dysfunction, even as they are, I wouldn't say they're losing money, but they're not making as much money as they used to. The team sucks. They don't have a TV deal anymore, which was huge. That cost them a lot of money. I think, yes, it feels like something that, they'd say, hey, make $2 billion in the sell if you sold the team and sail into the sunset. I think the Monforts want this to be something that they can keep within the family for generations. We already know how insular the organization is, hiring from within, all of that kind of stuff. But now we know Walker Monfort is kind of taking over the ownership duties. It looks like Dick Monfort's kind of phasing himself out. Walker Monfort's starting to take over. I think this is a situation where, almost like Stan Kroenke giving, kind of the reins of the Nuggets to Josh Kroenke, I think Dick Monfort saying, hey, obviously whatever's happening right now is not good. I'm stepping back. I'm letting Walker take over, and I'm going to let these next generations of my family kind of manage the ownership side of things. And I think that to him is more important than selling the team. They're still making a ton of money. Don't get me wrong. It's not like they're broke by any means, but I think to him, keeping control of the team and keeping the team within the family means more than just taking a big payout. But it's a good question, and I'd love for them to do that, but it's just not going to happen.
A professional sports team is the best investment there is. It just keeps what the Rockies are worth double what they were worth 5-6 years ago, double what they were worth before that, and it's just because sports keep growing. And that's why, for the same reason, like if you were in your 70s and you owned a $2 billion company, whatever that may be,
and you still have plenty of cash flow on your own,
right? Would you sell that, or would you say, no, my kids are set up for their lives and my grandkids' lives, because you just hold on to the asset that keeps appreciating. Like, it's the best investment that you can make. Like, it's sure you could cash it out, but I mean, why don't the owners of whatever company say, hey, we're just going to sell our stake and be happy with our money? Because that's bad business.
I have buddies from high school whose parents owned, let's just say a large multi-million-dollar successful landscaping company.
Right.
And, my buddy who is growing up, going to college, all that kind of stuff, he graduates college and says, well, I can go take over my family's business, that's going to make me a lot of money, or I can go try to figure it out on my own and just kind of roll the dice, right? Like, it's just, it's an easy funnel for all of that kind of stuff.
The investment's better than the cash.
And I also think, I think from an ego perspective, a pride perspective, why sell the team when it's down, right? You always want to sell when you're high. I think the Monforts, and God, I hope they're right, are betting on the fact that eventually one day they're going to be good again. The Rockies are going to be a competent baseball organization again. They're hopefully trending in that direction with a new front office. if they're ever going to sell a team, it's going to come after something bigger like that.
And to go specifically to the Walton Penners and the Cronkies, they have to be interested for that to work. Like right now, Kerry Penner, Greg Penner, they're in the Broncos building every day. Like that is their full-time job, is fixing the Broncos. I don't know that they are interested at all in just saying like, oh, and also we have the Rockies, and so we're going to be splitting our attention and going over that. Like they have their project. They have their one thing going.
You got to feel like the Cronkies, though, with the real estate of
totally.
Coors Field would be interesting.
Because again, that's how they operate.
I mean, that's a cash cow over there at Coors Field.
Because the Walton Penners, all they care about is winning. The Cronkies, again, they're like snarfs or illegal Pete's, where you say like, hey, we've got this one, and we can expand. We can get this one, and we can grow them all systematically. We can implement the same systems across all of our businesses and keep all them going. Like it's different, obviously, than the way the Monforts operate, which, like you said, it's just like mom and pop. Here's our little store. For them, we have our branches out with Arsenal. With
it's a major corporation.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, totally, 100%.
And then with the Walton Penners, it's just, hey, we have $63 billion. How do we want to spend the last 40 years of our life? Winning Super Bowls is the answer.
Absolutely.
And maybe eventually they might be interested in a World Series. But
I don't blame them, man.
You gotta do your thing first.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially because it's also basically the best investment you can make is professional sports. The NFL in particular.
Yeah. And it's just, you just go back to this whole thing. You wouldn't, yes, you'd be making money. Yes, the Monforts would make a boatload of money. But in 10 years, if the Rockies are even competent again and have meaningful baseball in the month of September, you're going to make a lot more than you would, if you sold the team right now when the team's coming off 119 losses. And I can't even imagine how little their TV deal made money-wise this year. I mean, outside of you, me, and Spencer, who else is watching
$100
these
each?
baseball? Who else is watching Rockies games this year, man?
No, when you lose
nothing.
that $50 million a year TV deal.
It's crazy.
And that's the part where, at this point, you can't blame them for not spending. Like for forever they were 12th, occasionally top 10. Like I think they were like 8th in baseball in spending when they were like 2018 going to the playoffs. But when your entire payroll is whatever, $165 million in that time frame, you lose your $50 million TV deal, and maybe you're getting $300,000 off of subscribers online. Like, there's going to be cuts to payroll. They brought some of that on themselves by sucking. It's also just the way the business has gone is those TV deals are drying up for everybody, even the teams that are good. Yeah. But then that's the one where you say like, there's no way to avoid massive cuts. But I don't know how you bounce back.
And that's where I get it. Everyone says sell the team. I understand. I wish that was a reality or a possibility, but the reality is it's just not going to happen. It's never going to happen.
No, because it's just bad business.
It is bad business. So if you want to be a baseball fan in Colorado, as hard as that might be, you have to look in a different direction. You have to find ways to, build some semblance of hope if that's what you're interested in other ways. Because the team being sold is just not a news flash that's going to come anytime soon. So it's like, how do you kind of change your direction? It's why we're talking about front office and ownership today, because the Rockies are trying to change their front office, or they're in the process of changing their front office. And so for the moment, there is a semblance of hope that, hey, maybe this time it's different. I mean, I know we're preaching to the choir here, but like it just, you have to just kind of hold on to hope that at some point something different is going to happen. And also the Monforts know that if they start winning again, they'll make more money. Now, whether or not they're willing to get out of their own ways to do that, that's a different story. But if they do start winning again, they will start making more money. And so, I'm not going to sit here and say the Monforts don't care about winning. It's whether or not they, A, can put their ego aside to kind of get out of their own way, and B, are they willing to invest in that? Are they willing to invest in the winning opportunities?
And that's the tough part for them is like they don't have so many side investments, so many other things going on that they can say, you know what, if we throw an extra $50 million at this team, what's going to happen? Like we then hopefully profit about that. Like they don't have the margins to take those risks. Whereas like we said, like you want to throw $150 million into stadium renovations for the Broncos, they're cool to do that and say, we're tearing this thing down in 5 years regardless. 100%. It's just a different world.
It is a different world. It's a different beast. I do want to talk a little bit more about that. And I also want to talk about the Avs, because the Avs, we talked about the Nuggets. The Nuggets can build around Nikola Jokic. The Avs took a different approach. They kind of were a draft and development team. You drafted Makar, you drafted McKinnon, you developed those guys. You brought a front office in that can handle that. and you've built a championship team, one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NHL in these last couple of years. And they're in a very unique situation with their front office. And I want to talk about that here in a little bit. So let's pause, just one quick break. We'll pause for our last break, and then we'll finish things up. All right. Let's talk about the Avs for a moment, because the Avs, the Avs are what the Rockies claim that they are, right? The Rockies have always said we're a draft and development organization, right? We don't have the money to go sign $700 million contracts, so we're going to draft and develop. And meanwhile, the Rockies have been arguably the worst draft and development team in baseball. So, there's a huge disconnect there. The Avs, on the other hand, they're a draft and development team. They don't sign huge free agents, like some other teams do. But they're a good draft and development team. They drafted McKinnon, they drafted McCarr, and they built those players into the best players in the NHL, and then built a team around that. And now you've got, your vice president, Joe Sakic, a former player who's done an incredible job of managing the operational side of the Avs, and then obviously Chris McFarland involved in that too. But the Avs went the former player route, right? They said, Sakic, you are the guy that, God, made people fall in love with the Avs in the first place. You are the hero of the Colorado Avalanche. Let's put you in charge and give you the resources to grow this team. And he's done it perfectly. Is there a world in which you could see something like that happening for an organization like the Rockies, or even down the road, a team like the Nuggets or the Broncos? I mean, it's a very unique situation having, when you saw John Elway do that with the Broncos, it's worked for the Avs. It has.
I think, going back to the start, the reason the Avs are draft and develop is because they were so bad. And so you look, 2009, third overall pick, Matt Duchene. 2011, second pick, Gabe Landeskog. 2013, first pick, Nathan McKinnon. 2017, fourth pick, Cale Makar. Whereas the Nuggets just weren't bad enough to have those picks. They did have the number 3 pick in 2003 with Carmelo, but they've only had 2 more top 10 picks since. With in 2015, Emmanuel Mudiay, 2016, Jamal Murray. And so they just didn't have, they weren't bad enough to be drafting in the top 10. They were a fringe playoff team, and they at one point had the longest playoff streak in the NBA. Whereas the Avs were just so bad that they're drafting in the top 5 every other year, and you're stacking up talent. And so it's a lot easier to be draft and develop. I think in terms of the former player, it works. I mean, it works if he's good and knows what he's doing. I mean, the Nuggets,
simple as that.
Calvin Booth was a good NBA player, and he was the GM there for a bit. And it was all right.
Elway's same situation,
Right. Yeah, and I think baseball is different because the numbers just matter so much.
It's numbers, yeah.
It's
you got to be a nerd.
I guess they tried the Harvard guy with Jeff Bridich, and it worked, right? Back-to-back playoff appearances the only time. It's just that he was such an ass that everybody hated him, and you just couldn't keep an organization. You decide that you're going to go get Nolan Arenado and pay him all the money, a good deal. And there's a bunch of things that happen, including Bridich saying, it's not going to stop us from paying anybody else. And then you go, 527 days without signing a free agent. You let DJ LeMahieu walk. And then just personality-wise, there's those conflicts. But that's part of the job is you piss off the guy who carried you to back-to-back playoff appearances, but with massive hits in every big moment, being the best third baseman in the history of the game. Who's the Cardinals third baseman from the 80s? Schwartz? Something like that. The guy everybody else.
Long time ago. Yeah. I wasn't alive back then.
In my Nolan era, it was a big moment when the best third baseman of all time said, it's actually Nolan now.
Yeah.
But when your personality is so bad that you make your best player, the guy who's kind of carrying the franchise, so mad that he has to go, that doesn't work. And so, I mean, there's something about the former player. It's easier for Nathan McKinnon to get along with Joe Sakic. That's legends. There's a way that you treat, there's a way that you talk. But I think with the Rockies in particular, it's math.
I think I agree with you. Baseball is just a different beast. And Felix says in the Toyota chat, Christian, you think Todd Helton has the ability to do what John Elway did with the Broncos? No. I don't think he does, and I don't think he wants to, first of all. But even if he did, even if Todd Helton wanted to be involved with the Rockies from a front office standpoint, I just think there's the best front offices in baseball now are guys that just, it's scheming, it's stats, it's data, it's analytics, it's scouting, it's all of that kind of stuff. Yes, you got to have a good feel for the team. And I think where you can make this point of former players making an impact is with the manager. Like you can, if Todd Helton wanted to come manage the Rockies one day, and we've talked about this on the Rockies pod before, but if, not right now where the team's trying to rebuild, but if the team got to a point where they were good one day and they said, we're missing a good manager, we need that's the last piece. A good former manager. Look at Dan Wilson with the Mariners, right? You had Scott Service, who was the manager before Dan Wilson. He couldn't get that star-studded team to the playoffs year after year in Seattle. And you bring in Dan Wilson, and albeit you added a couple big pieces during the trade deadline in Seattle, but Dan Wilson, the former star catcher for the Mariners, connects with his players and got them to almost a World Series. And so I think where a former player plays into Major League Baseball, it has to be a manager. I think front office, it's not the same beast, and it kind of changes the context of everything. Hockey's just a different breed. I mean, the GM, even Sakic as vice president, like you said, you're working still a lot with the players, and it's more trades, it's more contracts, it's more like that kind of stuff. It's not as much of a scouting specific role.
Right. And I even feel like at this point, I feel the numbers have gone too far. Like there is
in baseball, you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Where there is more to the scouting and being able to see ways that you can develop a player versus just like it is all numbers. But based on where the Rockies are right now, it's like, no, you go all in on the numbers.
Yeah,
like
you have to.
They're overcorrect to going the numbers route and the analytics route, and then you can have the conversation about, hey, maybe there is a little bit too much nuance here. The good teams get to figure out where exactly that line is. As of now, it's this guy's hitting this against this and whatever, the BABIP and the exit velocity.
WHIP.
All the things that we have never heard about. Because, I mean, the Dodgers have whatever, a dozen guys whose sole job is just working on AI and creating like learning models that they use for all that stuff. And before I can say the Rockies have gone too far in the numbers route, as somebody who wants to say, no, scouting matters, they've got to.
Yeah, you got to get back.
They
on
got
track.
miles to go that way.
You have to. Yeah, we were talking about this yesterday on our Rockies show. The Rockies need 2 to 3 years of just digging themselves out of a hole.
Totally.
Right? Whoever comes in as the new general manager or president of baseball operations, I was asked the question yesterday, how long do I think until the Rockies can be competitive again or competing for a playoff spot? And my answer was, it's going to be at least a couple years until you can just get back on track, right? Like not even competitive again, just righting the ship. You've spent the last 7 years quite literally digging a grave for yourself. I mean, you've been digging the deepest hole you could possibly be in. Your analytics department is a mess. Your scouting is a mess. Who knows what the draft is going to play out to be, but you've had top 5 draft picks the last handful of years.
Yep.
We'll see what those turn out to be. Trade deadlines have come and gone. Like the farm system is one of the worst in baseball. You're obviously your Major League Baseball team is one of the worst or the worst in baseball. Like you have to dig yourself out of that hole first before you can start playing the scheming game. Right now, you got to be Moneyball. You got to be Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill. I need you to be finding ways to just become a competent baseball team again.
Like going and trading Nolan Jones for Tyler Freeman.
Yeah,
you got to hit a bunch of those moves.
Yeah, you do.
But I've got a lot of thoughts on the Rockies. The first one is if for some reason they decided, you know what, we just need to. We're willing to say there's a bunch of good pitchers on the market this year, and so we're going to go pay, Framber Valdez and Shota Imanaga. Bang, we got those two. We're going to go, Schwarber's a free agent, Pete Alonso's a free agent. We're going to go snag one of those guys, and we're just going to have, there are ways to spend your way out of it. Exactly. But there's just no way they're giving out 3 of those contracts. I think there's a world in which they decide we can give out 1 of those contracts, but 3 is just, they've never done it before. And I think, to me, the Rockies need to build from the top down. As crazy as that sounds, like typically in these rebuilds, you need to build load up on the prospects, keep the system. Like what they need is enough actual MLB players that your prospects are actually prospects and not up in the majors batting 215.
Yeah.
Like, you need to actually have the MLB guys to send all of them down, because there's nothing they can do to tear down. Like, you've got 3, maybe 4 guys you can get a decent return for. And one is Ezekiel Tovar, your 23-year-old, 23 now? 22? 24 now. Yeah. 24-year-old shortstop.
He's turning 24. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's the exact guy that you kind of need as a team that's trying to compete in 3 years when he'll be approaching his prime.
Yeah.
Hunter Goodman, who's 25,
and not signing the Alan Trejos, the Owen Millers, where you're like, what business does this guy have playing on a baseball team right now? Why are you in a position where you have to play these guys, right? So yes, I agree. I agree with Ricky in the chat. Like, the Rockies are unfortunately years away from being competitive, but you have to start taking a step in the right direction. And I've said this a million times. I'm going to continue saying this, especially on TDSP. Other teams in Colorado, the Nuggets and the Avs specifically, used to be horrible. The Nuggets were one of the worst teams in NBA history not too long ago. I was still alive when this was happening. It wasn't that long ago. The Avs, very recently, were really, really bad. It's not like you can't turn things around, but the Rockies, I think the issue with the Rockies and what makes people so upset is that there's too many ownership hands in the cookie jar, where it feels like, yeah, okay, we know that we can turn things around if you have competent people in place, but the ownership feels like they're putting the brakes on anything that could possibly warrant positive progress. And I will say, as someone who covers the Colorado Rockies, I do think, although yes, there is still a Monfort in charge, yes, the Monforts still own the team, I do think Walker Monfort has a better feel for just the reality of what his dad has caused this organization to be and where this organization needs to go. And so far, things have been heading in the right direction. They're going outside the organization to bring in a new GM, a president of baseball operations. They created a chief strategy role within the organization that that's gonna kind of manage the finances and the data and analytics, all that kind of stuff. I think Walker realizes, hey, we suck, man. We got to figure this out. This isn't working. And yes, Rockies fans, myself included, have been yelling at the organization for the last 7 years to figure it out. Right. But I do think there is at least signs that things could be headed back in a better direction.
Right. And so much of it comes back to the business side.
It does.
Like, and that's the real killer, because you never talk about that with the Broncos. Like, it's very rare we talk about, like, I don't know, they really got to nail their sponsorships. Like, it's always like, okay, you have this much salary cap space. How can you manipulate it to get more? With the Rockies, like, you lose $50 million off of the top in that TV deal when you're a team that last year spent I think they were down to like 130 or something. Like, that's a significant chunk, and you want all those investments off to the side too. Invest in analytics, invest in your training staff and your coaching staff, and figuring out how that you can develop all your young guys and make them better. Like, you need to find a way to turn bigger profits so that you have the money to go and sign these guys. And that's why everything is just so dire right now, because it's all like, you're not making money. Like, they're not, as much as we say, like, they're all about the profits, they are not profitable right now. Like, there's no way that they came out of this year with more money than they started with. You have that issue. You have the fact that you don't really have prospects. Like, your farm system's 24th now
out of 30.
Your MLB team doesn't have guys where you can say, like, oh, we can tear down and trade them for prospects. Like, they're all guys who, the oldest of the bunch, I guess you do have Bretton Doyle, but outside of him, they're all like 26 or younger. Yeah. Like, those are the guys who you want a guy at about 30 when you're trying to compete. Like, those that's your window. Like, and it's not like you have many of those guys in the first place either. So they need to find a way to have money that they can invest wisely. And then hopefully in a decade, all of that pays off to the point where you're like, yep, we're back to being right around 10th in the majors in payroll. Yeah. Yeah. And the Rockies have shown that they spend some money, but like you said, there's a lot of things that have to go right. I'm assuming we're going to get some information on who the Rockies choose to be their next general manager, president of baseball operations pretty soon. I mean, they finalized their interviews, at least from some public rumors and stuff that came out this week. Yesterday, I believe, I think they were interviewing Matt Foreman. So things could change over the next few days for the Rockies. And
heading into this offseason. Don't expect the world next year. I mean, it's not like the Rockies are going anywhere. You will not be putting a sizable bet down that the Rockies are going to win a certain amount of games.
Not again.
Not again. You learned your lesson on that one.
Yeah.
But
I hope I remember that lesson in April.
I know. But it's things hopefully are headed slightly in the right direction. So
Can't be that bad again.
thanks for coming on with me, man.
Yep.
It was fun. This was a good time. Appreciate you guys hanging out in the chat. It's always good to talk about some of our other teams here, our successful teams around the Colorado sports world. But yeah, thanks for watching. We'll be back next Wednesday at noon for more Denver Sports Podcast. Be sure to tune in to the Broncos show coming up in 15 minutes. You guys got a lot to talk about. Good Broncos team. Trade deadline coming up. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time right here on the Denver Sports Podcast.